What if I told you Skeleton Crew is not what it seems? It's a great show with a very dark twist. I have a theory I want to share with you. I've discussed it with a few people in our Discord, and I'm pretty certain the truth about the planet of Attin is darker than you realize. But first, my dear friends, we do have some pretty exciting news. I really don't think Disney and Lucasfilm expected the success of the first 2 episodes, and it's just come out that Skeleton Crew is now the second best reviewed Disney Star Wars project, only beaten by Andor. Do you realize how enormous this is? That is an incredible feat. As someone who's loving the show so far, this makes me so happy. We don't know about viewership, but I'm really over the moon fans are enjoying it and resonating with it. And I have to say, we're seeing a trajectory with this series that I really didn't expect. Outlets and media critics that traditionally love everything that Star Wars puts out have been more on the critical end, and those I expected to dislike this show are really loving it and having a good time. And even if you remove the Star Wars aspect, it's still a really fun sci-fi show. This is a show I can imagine George Lucas enjoying. It's weird, it's got tons of fun aliens, great world building, the Force, new planets, it's family friendly, and not to mention, it has one of the most alluring government mystery subplots. What is the nature of Attin? Why is it closed off? Is the great work linked to the High Republic? Have they been in isolation for centuries? We're going to talk about this in more depth a little bit later. So you mix all of that with the 80s vibes, and it truly is one of the most special Star Wars shows. So much better than I expected. So here is the breakdown. There is very little difference between the reception for Andor and Skeleton Crew, despite the genres being so different, but Skeleton Crew being so high makes a lot of sense, and I've been paying close attention to how the audience reacted, and even though you have those who really didn't like it, this really is an unprecedented surprise win for Disney. And a few months ago, insiders were warning it might be bad. Oh boy, were they mistaken. But I do want to ask you guys something. I read your comments, and this might be anecdotal, but what I noticed in some of those replies is many people watching this with their children as a family have found they're enjoying it much more than their kids. And I'm not saying that's to say this isn't going to resonate with younger fans, but I've seen a trend. While this show is aimed with younger viewers in mind, is it instead appealing to those who were children in the 80s and 90s? Is the show reminding now adults of their childhoods? And don't get me wrong, plenty of families are loving it and their kids are enjoying it as well, but I have seen quite a few fans say this, that it's more for them. I'm sure plenty of children resonate with Wim, Neil, Fern and KB, but why would they be nostalgic for something they don't remember? Goonies, E.T., just a thought. But like I said guys, this show is really speaking to me, and I'm enjoying the characters. Yes, there is the criticism this is too Earth-like. I do agree to an extent, but I'm seeing a bigger picture of what they're doing with Attin. The message the show is trying to convey, the type of planets they live on versus the rest of the galaxy, I think that's going to really unfold as the episodes go on, and I know for a fact there is going to be a major reveal concerning this subplot in the next 2 weeks. So now I want to talk about the strange nature of Attin. Why the barrier? Why are they closed off? At face value, we assume it contains treasures. That's what pirates believe. But there is something so ominous about the security droids. Is it a surveillance state? Did something or someone hijack the planet? Under Secretary Favreau mentions she works for a supervisor, but we still haven't met them. She also mentions the Republic, but I don't think it's the New Republic. If they've been closed off, she could be referring to the High Republic or the Old Republic. In either case, what if someone, let's say the Imperial Remnant, infiltrated their system, pretended to be from that republic, and is using Attin as a resource mine, keeping them ignorant for their own purposes? What if their obsession with old valuable currency could be a way of them to fundraise for what's going to become the First Order? In this theory, somehow the Remnants broke into the barrier, convinced them they're a representative of the Republic, and became the Secretary, who we still haven't met. And if you're thinking this is impossible, I want to remind you that in one of the trailers, Under Secretary Favreau contacts the outside world, so those in power on Attin can break through the barrier. Maybe before his death, Palpatine found a way to access Attin, and now one of the remnants found those plans. Is it someone from the Shadow Council? So while Attin thinks it's under the jurisdiction of the Republic, in reality, it could be a remnant. To make things even more crazy, I don't even think Fern's mum Farah knows. When she puts out the message, I think it's the New Republic that responds, and because it drew in their attention, by the end of the season, they might go to Attin, liberate the world, tell them what's happened, and arrest the supervisor. And there is more proof of this. Did you know, my dear friends, the only other known Undersecretary in all of Star Wars canon is also called Farah from the Alphabet Squadron books, and she was a remnant. All I'm saying is, everything is pointing to the fact there is more than meets the eye. I'm so curious. But staying on the subject of Skeleton Crew, I'm very impressed by Lucasfilm's social media accounts. In fact, StarWars.com is doing quite a lot to promote the show, and they've also brought back the episode guides. Most of this is stuff I already talked about in my breakdown, some of the fun Easter eggs, but a couple of things stood out. When I was watching the episode, I remember thinking that a side character on one of the bikes that rides past KB and Fern looks a lot like someone who in a separate project could play a teenage Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. And given rumours there might be a Kylo Ren project in the works, the movie by Sean Levy could be a contender for that. The thoughts popped into my mind, and it's now doubled down by the fact the episode guide says this character is inspired by Harrison Ford in American Graffiti, and of course in Star Wars Harrison is Han Solo, the father of Ben. So if they ever want to make a project with a young Kylo Ren, they need to get this guy, and maybe the reason they got him in the first place is because they auditioned him for a different project. My brain is going to all kinds of conspiratorial places, but I couldn't help but mention it. We've also learned the names of a couple of the new character species. We have a new type of frog dog. You might remember those from Return of the Jedi and Jabba's palace. Well, this one is the Attin frog dog, and it's described as bright and inquisitive, but it's not sentient. That's very interesting, because they are canonically meant to be. We also know this fluffy creature is called Runa, but its species is Vazuan. However, they don't confirm the name of Neil species. In other massive Skeleton Crew news, the showrunners were asked about Hondo Ohnaka, and unfortunately, my dear friends, and again they could be playing coy, they flat out said no. They were asked if we're going to see the famous pirate, and the quote with TV line is this: "We'll rip off that band-aid and say no, we don't have any Hondo." Honestly, we love Hondo, but there really wasn't a part in our story that offered a good enough role for him. Like, if we're trying to cast him in this, he would be like, this part is not big enough for Hondo. So, there you go. Now, whether they're doing a Leslie Headland when she said there would be no Yoda in the Acolyte, or if they're being truthful, we have to wait another few weeks. But to be honest, now that we've had a feel for the show, I don't get the impression there's any room for him, or any kind of major cameo. The story seems pretty concise. Who is Jude Law's character? What are his motivations? Is he going to betray the children to find Attin? Is he going to turn good by the end of the series? Is he going to die? Why does Attin have the barrier, the great work? There's already so much to cover in the next 6 episodes. So, at the moment, having had 2 of the episodes, I don't see how Hondo fits. Would I like to see him? Obviously, it's a show about pirates. But I get the impression they're trying to tell fans honestly, we like the character, but this is not the place.